The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows across the dense forest. Sarah and her friends, Matt, Emily, and Jake, had ventured deep into the woods for a weekend camping trip. They pitched their tents near a tranquil stream, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to whisper secrets in the night breeze. As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled overhead, the group settled in for the night. But as the darkness deepened, a sense of unease crept over them. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and the forest seemed to come alive with strange noises. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Matt shrugged, trying to sound confident. "Probably just an animal, nothing to worry about." But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled in the pit of her stomach. She crawled into her sleeping bag, pulling it tight around her as she tried to drown out the unsettling sounds of the night. Just as she was beginning to drift off to sleep, a blood-curdling scream pierced the darkness. Sarah's eyes flew open, her heart pounding in her chest. She sat up, listening intently as the scream echoed through the trees. "What was that?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah shook her head, her mind racing with fear. "I don't know, but we need to find out." Reluctantly, the group emerged from their tents, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they searched for the source of the scream. They followed the sound deeper into the woods, the trees closing in around them like gnarled fingers. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center of the clearing lay an old, dilapidated cabin, its windows boarded up and its roof sagging with age. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she approached the cabin, her friends close behind her. As they neared the cabin, they heard a soft whimpering coming from inside. Sarah hesitated, her hand trembling as she reached for the door. With a creak, the door swung open, revealing a scene straight out of a nightmare. The interior of the cabin was shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by the flickering flame of a single candle. In the corner of the room, huddled against the wall, was a figure wrapped in tattered clothes, their face obscured by shadows. "Are you okay?" Sarah called out, her voice trembling with fear. The figure looked up, their eyes wide with terror. "You shouldn't have come here," they whispered, their voice barely audible above the rustling of the trees. Before Sarah could respond, the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving behind nothing but a sense of dread that hung heavy in the air. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for the candle, her heart pounding in her chest. As the flame flickered to life, it illuminated the walls of the cabin, revealing a series of crude drawings etched into the wood. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized what she was looking at, sketches of grotesque figures with twisted, contorted features. "We need to get out of here," Emily whispered, her voice shaking with fear. But before they could flee, they heard a low, guttural growl emanating from the shadows. They turned to see a pair of glowing eyes staring back at them from the darkness, their gaze filled with malice. With a scream, Sarah and her friends turned and ran, their footsteps echoing through the night as they fled from the cabin and back into the safety of their campsite. They didn't stop running until they were safely inside their tents, their hearts pounding in their chests as they huddled together for comfort. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, Sarah and her friends emerged from their tents, their faces pale with fear. They packed up their belongings in silence, eager to leave the nightmare of the whispering woods behind them. But as they made their way back to civilization, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched and that the horrors of the night were far from over. In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains lay a serene lake known to locals as Willow Lake. Its tranquil waters mirrored the starry sky above, creating a picturesque setting for camping under the moonlight. But beneath its serene surface lurked a dark secret, one that would haunt those who dared to venture too close after dusk. A group of friends consisting of Alex, Kate, Michael, and Sarah had decided to spend the weekend camping at Willow Lake. Excitement filled the air as they pitched their tents near the water's edge, their laughter mingling with the rustling of the trees. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, the group gathered around the campfire to roast marshmallows and share stories. But as the night wore on, a sense of unease settled over them, like a shroud descending upon the forest. "I don't like the way those trees are swaying," Kate said, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael scoffed, trying to mask his own growing unease. "It's just the wind, Kate. Nothing to worry about." But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, a sensation that sent shivers down his spine. He glanced nervously at the dark expanse of the lake, its still water shimmering in the moonlight. As the group settled into their tents for the night, Alex found himself unable to sleep. Every rustle of the leaves and every creak of the branches seemed to echo through the darkness, filling him with a sense of dread. Just as he was beginning to drift off, a soft, splashing sound caught his attention. He sat up, listening intently as the sound grew louder, like someone or something moving through the water. Heart pounding, Alex unzipped his tent and peered outside, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. What he saw sent a chill down his spine. A figure standing at the water's edge, their back turned to him as they stared out across the lake. "Guys, wake up!" Alex whispered urgently, shaking his friends awake. Startled, the others emerged from their tents, their eyes widening in terror as they saw the figure standing by the lake. "What is that?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with fear. Before anyone could answer, the figure turned and vanished into the darkness, leaving behind nothing but a sense of dread that hung heavy in the air. Determined to uncover the truth, the group set out to explore the lake's edge, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they searched for any sign of the mysterious figure. But as they neared the water, a strange mist began to rise from the surface, enveloping them in its cold embrace. "Something's not right here," Michael said, his voice barely audible above the sound of their racing hearts. Just then, a voice echoed through the mist, whispering words that sent chills down their spines. "Leave this place," it said, its tone filled with a warning they could not ignore. With a sense of urgency, the group fled back to their campsite, their hearts pounding in their chests as they huddled together for safety. But the sense of dread lingered, like a shadow that refused to be dispelled. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, the group packed up their belongings and fled from Willow Lake, their minds haunted by the events of the night. They never returned to the lake, but the memory of that fateful night would stay with them forever, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the serene waters. The lost woods stretched for miles, shrouded in darkness even during the day, but it was the nighttime that held the true terror. Mark, Jess, Chris, and Emma had heard the tales of the woods, stories of hikers vanishing without a trace, whispers of something ancient and malevolent lurking among the trees. Yet, fueled by youthful bravado, they decided to embark on a camping trip deep into the heart of the lost woods. As dusk descended upon the forest, they set up camp near a small clearing, the trees casting long shadows that seemed to dance in the flickering light of their campfire. Despite their apprehension, they laughed and joked, trying to shake off the unease that hung heavy in the air. As the night wore on, the forest grew eerily silent, the usual sounds of wildlife replaced by an oppressive stillness. Jess shivered, wrapping her arms around herself as a chill ran down her spine. "Is it just me? Or does it feel like we're being watched?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the crackling of the fire. Chris scoffed, trying to sound brave. "It's just your imagination, Jess. Nothing to worry about." But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. She glanced nervously into the surrounding darkness, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night, echoing through the trees with an otherworldly intensity. The group froze, their blood running cold as they listened to the agonizing wail that seemed to emanate from the depths of the forest. "What the hell was that?" Mark exclaimed, his voice tinged with fear. Before anyone could respond, they heard it. A faint whispering, like the rustling of leaves in the wind, but with an unnatural quality that sent shivers down their spines. "Let's get out of here," Jess said, her voice trembling with fear. But as they scrambled to pack up their belongings, they realized with growing horror that they were no longer alone. Shadows moved among the trees, twisting and writhing in the darkness like malevolent spirits. With mounting dread, they realized the truth. They were being hunted. Panic set in as they realized they were hopelessly lost in the maze of trees, with no way to escape the encroaching darkness. As they stumbled through the woods, their flashlights cutting feeble beams through the gloom, they heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through the very earth beneath their feet. "We need to stick together," Chris said, his voice shaking as he tried to sound confident. But their efforts were in vain. One by one, they were picked off by the unseen horrors that lurked in the shadows, their screams echoing through the night as they vanished without a trace. Emma was the last to fall, her heart pounding in her chest as she realized she was utterly alone. She ran blindly through the trees, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she struggled to evade her unseen pursuers. Just as she thought she couldn't run any longer, she stumbled upon a small clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient, gnarled tree, its branches reaching towards the sky like grasping fingers. With nowhere left to run, Emma collapsed to the ground, her strength spent. As she lay there, trembling with fear, she heard the whispering once more, soft, insidious voices that seemed to speak directly to her soul. And then, with a final, chilling realization, she understood. The lost woods were not merely haunted. They were alive, a malevolent entity that fed on the fear of those foolish enough to enter its domain. As the darkness closed in around her, Emma knew that she would never leave the lost woods alive, destined to become just another whispering shadow among the trees.